Friday Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where business owners share their wisdom. It's short and to the point to respect people's time. And because we know transforming possibility happens really fast and it leads to lasting results. But enough of that. Let's get to it. Question number one in a few sentences. Jay, tell me who you are and all about what you do.
Well, apparently now I'm somebody who talks really fast because that's the way we do this podcast, which is fine. It's funny because I do a lot of sales coaching and I tell people, don't talk too fast. That's one of the people need to hear you. So I'm Jay Fairbrother. My company is The Profit Architects. I'm a serial entrepreneur for the last 30 years. I think this is my 9th business that I'm on. And all that really means is that while I've had some nice successes, I've also had some massive failures. And so now what I do is I help businesses as a business coach, business advisor, hopefully to avoid a lot of the mistakes that I made along the way. So that's what I'm about.
Speaks to my heart and to the audience, of course, Jay. I love that. The Profit Architect, learning from your failures and your successes. That's what I heard. So fantastic. I love it. Moving on to question number 2, Jay. One of my favorites. What's the best thing in all the vast experience you have? Because you've been around the way a minute or two. What's the best thing about being in business?
Well, you know what? The best thing can also be the worst thing. So the best thing is the freedom, right? That's ultimately why most entrepreneurs go into business. It's not the money. It's not it's this idea that we can live this ideal entrepreneurial lifestyle and have this freedom. But what happens to most entrepreneurs is they become a slave to the companies they build. And then you lose exactly the whole thing that you went into in the first place to do, right? And it even, and so let me add one little thing to that, because a lot of us go into business because we're passionate about something or we want to serve or help people, right? But that all ties together, because if you become a slave to your business, you can't help as many people as you should be able to or could be able to if you learn how to scale your business, how to work on your business, not in your business. Those are cliches, but it's really true. So the best thing for sure is just to build a business so that you really do determine your own fate, in the sense of you spend your own time, which is the only commodity that you have and can control, is that you spend your time doing the things which are most valuable to not only growing the business, but giving you the satisfaction and fulfillment of being that, entrepreneur that drove you in the first place.
Love that. I love that. I mean, a lot, because I know, and I know too, and those of you listening probably are aware also that many of us, when we first start, go from the 9 to 5 to the 24/7. Yeah. And that's right. Just not sustainable. And the goal really, as you know, Jay, is to really work ourselves out of a job, not into a job, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs are moving toward the point of sale and that kind of thing. And that's when we're really jamming. So I love that, Jay. Thank you for sharing. Really appreciate that. And it really is all about having the freedom to kind of do what we want at the pace we want, at the stride we want, and just being able to do it. I love it. I know you help people do that. So the next question, this is one of my favorites. I'm a systems guy, so I love this kind of stuff. So that's the reason for this question. We hear from other business owners, and I know you know this too, that they're getting so much business sometimes, even now, that the chaos sometimes causes overwhelm. Would you be willing to share your thoughts about that, Jay?
Well, it's a perfect segue from what we just talked about, because that when you become a slave to the business, that's exactly what happens, is you get sucked into the overwhelm and the chaos, and often you make bad decisions as an entrepreneur when that happens, because you got in this situation where you're working day to day, right? You're putting out today's fires, you're focused on today's emergencies, getting today's clients, and you're not strategic about building the business, right? So part of what we do is, as consultants and advisors, is come in and help the entrepreneur, figure out how to get out of that chaos and overwhelm. because it's not, unfortunately, it's not a magic bullet. It's not an easy answer, but you can, literally, and that's why having a coach is a great thing, as you know, because you have somebody who's challenging you and saying, well, wait a minute, why are you spending that? Why are you spending your time doing that task? That I know you like doing it, but let's think about getting somebody else to do that so you can focus on, the more important stuff, right? Exactly. So working, it's the key it's a difference between growing a business and scaling a business, right? Growing a business is all about chaos and overwhelm. Scaling a business is about, designing your business so that you can grow it and increase sales, revenues, and most importantly, profits, in a fashion which isn't going to kill you, literally.
Love it. Is the business owning you or are you owning the business? I love everything you just said, Jay. And it's so true. It's painful sometimes, but we see a lot of people who, some of them think they know what they're doing and some of them just know that they don't know what they're doing. But it can be painful at times, and breaking through those is really not that difficult if you connect with people that have experience. Love it.
I've seen it so many times. I'm a huge believer in peer groups and in entrepreneurs hanging out in peer groups. And I've seen some of my best friends over the years that I was in peer groups with. And I'm not kidding, literally kill themselves. They work so hard at their business, and gave up so much that it put them in their grave. And it shouldn't be that way. Agreed.
100%. It's a kind of a downer of a subject, but it's one that's not talked about often, and it's real. It's out there. There's a lot of people fearful to go back to their other job, don't know how to overcome the pain. It's a sad subject, but it's real. That's what happens if we don't solve the problems. As entrepreneurs, that's what we do, right? We pick a problem and solve it, but turn to someone that can help.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And that could be a business coach or it could be a therapist, but it's a tough thing. We joke about it, but for entrepreneurs, that is the toughest thing, is reaching out for help. Because, every entrepreneur has some version of the Superman syndrome where they think they can do it all. They think they can solve all the problems. And they're the first to admit that there's nobody to talk to. They can't talk to their family. Their friends who have jobs don't get it. They can't talk to their employees about their issues and fears and concerns and challenges. Get somebody to talk to one way or another.
I'm glad you broached this subject. It really is a powerful subject. May not be one of popular topic or one, that's fun to discuss, but it's real. There's some real problems out there, and it's true that a lot of people, whether it be ego, pride, whatever it is, won't reach out for help. They won't hop on a discovery call. They won't, they just won't ask a question and just say, hey, look, I'm struggling right now. My profits are not where they should be. And I don't know what to do. And so that is the key as a consultant, as a coach, as, people to see these people in these struggles. I encourage people, just reach out. Jay would be happy to hop on a call with you. We'll get to that later. Question number 4, Jay, what other successful business owners like yourself that have been in many years and have done lots of things? I'm just kidding. What other successful business owners like yourself should be on the Unlimited Wisdom podcast?
There's a guy that I'm working with. I'm actually creating a course with him called Skip the Marketing. And he's a brand and identity. He calls himself the identity architect. So I'm the profit architect. He's the identity architect or archaeologist. Sorry, I don't mean to misquote him. His name is Josh Zeppes, Zeppess. And he's really good at getting people to create a brand and image for first impressions and getting in the door, so to speak. And I just really like his message delivery and that kind of stuff. So we're doing a course together. So
love it.
Have him on the show.
I love that. Thank you for the suggestion and for explaining what he does as well. That sounds fascinating. So I'll be sure to reach out to him. Jay, question number 5. With all your vast experience, what piece of wisdom would you share with other business owners?
That's pretty easy. My focus in my company, why I called it the Profit Architects, is that I help business owners focus on profits. And the reason that is from very personal experience, which is when I built my first company, I started out, and like most entrepreneurs, it's all about growth, right? more leads, more clients, more revenue, more. And while that creates growth, it also can create headaches and overwhelm and that chaos we were talking about earlier. So in my experience, my first company, I grew it to 50 employees. I thought my ego was pretty happy. I grew it to 5 million in sales. I kind of thought I was a hot shot, and I still wasn't making any money, right? I was barely making six figures. I hadn't had a vacation in, I think, 10 years. It wasn't until I figured out how to scale the company, not just grow the company, that we started really making money. So by the time I hit 200 employees, we were doing very well, and I sold that business a few years later. So I think that's a common problem that most entrepreneurs, especially first-time entrepreneurs, go through, right? Is we're working on the day-to-day, we're trying to just make things happen, keep growing, keep moving forward, and we're not really taking a strategic look at the business in terms of how to scale it. So focusing on profit can mean a lot of different things, right? Some people even have issues around the idea of profit, right? So there's a whole industry out there for people who have blocks around money and making too much of it or saving too much of it or whatever. But for an entrepreneur, profit is your lifeblood. Like literally, there's nothing more important, maybe cash flow. But without profits, there's no cash flow anyway. So anyway, the thing that we want to focus on as entrepreneurs is how do I, increase margins, decrease costs? How do I create a scalable business model so that when I start creating profit, I can choose to take that fancy vacation, or I can choose to reinvest it in my company. But without profits, nothing happens, right? You're just growing, you're in the grind, it's like the hamster wheel. It just keeps going with no end. But once you start generating profits, then you can make those strategic decisions about what to do with the profit and how to grow your company, what you're putting in your pocket. And most importantly, if you ever want to sell your business or replace yourself as CEO, that's not happening without profit, right? You're not going to sell a business based on revenues, or growth trajectory. People buy your business or want to take over your business because of profits. So that's my focus, is helping people look at profits. And what we do is we come in and look at up to 40 different areas of the business that we look at and say, can we tweak this area to generate more profit? Okay. If so, what would be involved? What's the cost? What's the effort? And then we create a list of the, could be 6 to 12 top items or categories or areas of the business we want to focus on. We use that list in terms of the most amount of impact with the least cost, and then just start working through that list. And that's the basis of our coaching.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I think it's a very common problem. There's a big market out there for you, Jay. But it's a big problem that needs to be solved, and one that's, with somebody experienced like yours, one is pretty easily solvable. So it's might be simple, maybe not easy, but it's simple to solve if you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I get asked that question a lot, is this some gimmick, like how are you just going to create more profit? And it's a process, right? Like everything, right? There is no magic bullets. You just, look at things, and again, having that outside perspective as a coach or business advisor to be able to say, why are you doing this? Well, what effect is this creating that you're making these decisions? And just to walk through, like I said, there's a lot of different areas you can look at. There's some low hanging fruit ones you go after right away to say, look, can we at least, get you some temporary relief by doing X, Y, and Z? But yeah, there's a lot of need out there. You're right.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's a noble cause. I'm fascinated, Jay. You and I have been around a minute or two, so I'm not afraid to say, at least for me anyway, I'm curious on your perspective about social media and businesses. I'd love to just riff with you for a minute on just about, I think, has social media changed the way people think about business? And what I mean by that, let me frame it even more. I come across, and I imagine you do too, a lot of people who throw themselves on social media and then think they have a business. Do you ever experience that? And what's your perspective around that?
So, part of the experience I have is doing online marketing and creating, online courses and coaching business online. This is not necessarily what I do right now, but I've done it in the past. So you can create a business entirely online. I think for most business owners, and talking about brick and mortar business owners where you have employees and that kind of thing, I think that that a lot of people are misdirected around social media. I think that a lot of people feel this pressure to go out and like hire a social media manager or someone to quote unquote do social media for them. Because sitting around as a business owner and spending 3 to 4 hours a week on social, putting up social media posts is not necessarily a good use of time. But just doing social media for the sake of doing social media is also not a good use of time, and especially if you're paying somebody to do it without a strategy. So that's, to me, that it always comes back to strategy in the end. It's like, well, why are you making these posts? Certainly there's some value in just getting your name out in front of people, but then the question becomes, are you putting it in front of the right people? Are you targeting your social media, or are you just putting it out there expecting, like the field of dreams, right? Build it and they will come. Early on in social media days, that was actually partially true. If you just put it out there, people would come. Now there's too much, right? Where you can't possibly develop, just build an audience organically, unless you've got some really cute kid or dog doing some kind of trick, right? That, but just posting business content, it's very hard to get traction, and again, you just have to be strategic about it. I don't know if that answered your question.
It did, very much so. And I'm fascinated by this because what got, for a lot of business owners that started 3, 4, 5 years ago, what got them here won't get them there. And with a person with your experience and knowledge of years and years and years in business, seeing the systems and the patterns over and over and over again, I think I knew you'd bring a different perspective to that. And it's an important conversation that I'm not singling out new business owners, but just there's a stage, right? The time we're in, there's a lot of people in that space. So I knew you'd be able to speak into it, and I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Going back to the,
let me just add one thing though, because having said that, I don't mean to diss social media. I mean, again, it's why are you using it? There's social media for marketing purposes. And again, are you targeting the right people? But there's also, you can use social media very effectively for sales, for prospecting and actually, talk about, one of the things most business owners don't do often until they're, 3 to 5 years into the business, sometimes never, is identify their ideal client and their target client and go after them instead of just, spraying stuff out there on social media, hoping that magical ideal client's going to notice. So
100%. I know you have a deep sales background. So, sometimes making the things simple is fascinating. And I think what you said is really, it's really important to the conversation. You're 3 to 5 years in and you don't have clear messaging where you can pick a target market, get on LinkedIn, search them, find them, speak to them, create a conversation with them, and offer them a product, then the business is probably in trouble. So profits are probably dwindling. So yeah. I'm with you. And some things are really that simple with someone like yourself that has the experience to help someone through that. So I appreciate your perspective. I'm going to ask you one more question about the profit specifically and steps that a person can take. And then we're going to shift gears for a minute. So from the profit architect side of things, what's someone that could, well, let me say this. So you've been doing this for a while. You probably know the patterns of things that most commonly people run into. So what's something actionable that you think the vast majority of entrepreneurs listening, they might say, yep, I don't have that, and I could probably start that now. There's something actionable that you could offer them, something they could dive into or research or something to help
Yeah,
zero in on the profits?
I'm struggling. My expression is just because it's hard to pick one, right? So the one area that I always ask people to look at is JV relationships and strategic partnerships. There's often a lot of low-hanging fruit that you can create just by working with other business owners who are serving the same clients. That's the critical part, who offer different non-competing things, and developing relationships with them to be able to refer customers back and forth. Where that, that's not a, again, it's in the simplicity, right? That's a simple idea. It's not revolutionary by any stretch of the imagination, but the key is in execution, right? A lot of people go out and they'll sort of make that relationship and shake hands on it, and then, okay, and then 3 months later, you're thinking, I don't think I got a referral from that person, right? Well, shame on you, right? That because you let it go for 3 months and didn't do anything to nurture the relationship, to follow up. Is there an incentive in place to refer business back and forth? There's all kinds of things like that that you can do. And again, depending on what you're selling, price of your service or product, if you're selling widgets for $1 a piece, obviously you need a lot of those widgets to make a difference. But if you're selling, anything that's high end, I mean, just a few additional sales, but that kind of effort, where you spend a couple hours to develop these relationships and put in writing and put something in place, and then it's just incremental income and profit based on that one thing. So.
Love it. I knew that you would deliver something powerful. Jay, thank you. Thank you for sharing. Nothing like connecting with somebody that has like an email list of 1 million people that's willing to promote you, right? Like that's just one simple idea that I think a lot of people overlook. I knew you'd deliver on that. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it. Jay, I know you and I could talk about profit and business and systems and all that stuff all day, every day, probably, and enjoy it. Let's switch gears. What's the most fun vacation you've ever had? Because we do work to live and not live to work, right?
Again, hard to pick only one, but I would say I had just gotten married, or remarried, I guess. So we had older teenage children, 2 each. And we all went to Europe for this cruise that started in Paris, ended in Barcelona. And, we stayed a few days in Paris to begin with, stayed a few days in Barcelona, after the cruise. And I got to say, Barcelona is one of my favorite cities in the world that I've visited. But I'll tell you one story from this trip, because the whole thing was amazing. But while we were in Tuscany, I had a private driver tour person. And so we went kind of off the beaten path of the tourist places to this, little quaint restaurant in the vineyard and that kind of thing. And we were literally the only tourists in the spot, and it was pretty crowded. And at the end of the meal, the owner approached us with these 6 shots of limoncello and presented and say, we want to thank you for coming and blah, blah, blah. So, being the ignorant Americans that we are with, teenage children, we hoisted the glasses, cheers, and we, chugged the limoncello. And I can still, this was, 15 years ago, and I can still literally remember the shocked faces of everybody in the restaurant, because it was kind of a spectacle at that point, because, everybody saw that the owner had brought these out, and everyone was just like, oh my God, you do not shoot the limoncello, you sip. And it was just one of those magical moments that, my kids and I still laugh about today.
I love it. That's a great story. Culture is so fun. I'm with you. You took me back. I've been to Italy a couple of times, and also to Spain, some of my favorite places. Well,
and the pictures behind me are actually from that same vacation. So
I love it. I love it. Great story, Jay. I appreciate you. I appreciate you investing time. That's what it is. You invested your time to be here for the listeners and deliver value. I really appreciate that. What's the website or social media? What's the best way when somebody listens to this and they watch it and they say, I need to reach out to that guy. I really need some profit architect. How do they reach you, Jay?
It's easy. The website is theprofitarchitects.com. And my email address is my name. So it's Jay at fairbrother.com. And feel free to reach out. Happy to try to help.
I love it. You may or may not want to share, but I know you have another initiative going on too, right? With, do you want to share that as well? I'd love to. I mean, I'm into it and I'd love you for you to share that too.
Yeah. So one of the other things I do is I'm on the leadership team for the Global Leaders Organization, which is an entrepreneurial community kind of based after EO or YPO or WPO, if you've ever heard of those. They've been around for quite some time and have, hundreds of thousands of members worldwide. So 𝐏𝐿 is modeled after those organizations. We offer basically the same kind of stuff they do, but in addition to that, we have our own content platform, the 𝐏𝐿 Network, as well as our own capital platform that provides access to capital for entrepreneurs specifically trying to grow their businesses. So I run the Pittsburgh chapter of 𝐏𝐿, and I'm also head of chapter chairs, and my job is to find, recruit, and train chapter chairs to start a chapter of 𝐏𝐿 all over the world. So we're in startup phase, looking to grow that organization, and the website is withglow.com. So withglo.com.
Love it. Thanks for sharing that, Jay. I appreciate you. I want to encourage anybody listening, leaders, aspiring leaders, entrepreneurs. We're all leaders, right? If you're looking to expand that area of opportunity in your life and business, I want to encourage you to reach out to Jay, send him a message through the website, reach out to him, ask questions about it. This is a great opportunity. So, Jay, thanks so much. Appreciate having you on. This is Brad A. Milford with the Unlimited Business Wisdom Podcast, where business owners making, oh, this might hurt a little bit, Jay, 5 figures, 6 figures, 7 figures, 8 figures, 9 figures, 10 figures, 11 or 12. Look, it's not all about the money. I know you're laughing right now. It's also about sharing your wisdom and creating global impact. That's where it's at. Thanks for joining us.